broadcasting live from the Roanoke Valley of southwestern Virginia. Join us and see what life looks like from a medium's perspective with Reverend Tracey Lockwood, the medium's medium. We'll explore the tools of psychic development, hear stories and experiences from the other side, and learn to listen to our natural intuition. Now, our host, Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Before we get into today's show, I just wanted to remind you that if you have an interest in a private session, either for a reading or to connect to people on the other side, I am available. Also, I offer private tutoring, and I am also offering twice a year a 12-week certification program. You can find that and more information on my website at mediumtracylockwood.com. Well, today I am so happy. I'm welcoming back a guest that we've had on the show before because she is so delightful and so profound. She has earned her PhD from Indiana University and in organizational behavior, and has a master's also from there studying social psychology. Very interesting background on the left brain hemisphere there. She is an author and a speaker and a spiritual life coach, and she supports people in creating joy and balance in their life. She leads shamanic journeys. She offers spiritual study groups and has served as a minister in worship services, and she also has written 2 books that are just amazing: The Path for Greatness, Work as a Spiritual Service, and Staying Grounded in Shifting Sand. And I'm just, impressed with her work and love her dearly personally. And you do keynote addresses and conduct workshops and retreats and do life coaching and private sessions that way. Welcome, Linda J Ferguson, back to the show.
Thank you, Tracey. Thanks for having me here again.
I was reading the name of your second book, Staying Grounded in Shifting Sand. And I know that you do retreats and workshops based on that. And, I mentioned, in your preamble here about your leading shamanic journeys. I would say this is definitely a time of change and upheaval for a lot of people around the world and in our country as well, here in the U.S. How do you think that working with energies and shamanism itself, maybe define shamanism and then tell us how that might help people navigate some of these incredibly challenging waters?
Yeah, it's a big topic. So let me just briefly describe what shamanism is and shamanic practice.
Yeah.
And then talk, particularly in these times, there's just a lot that people can do, even if they don't consider themselves shamans, which I certainly don't. I have taken many classes and training in shamanic work, and the main piece about shamanism that I think is incredibly helpful in this day and age is that when we step into this work, we are working with spirit guides on different levels, not on this physical earth plane, but spirit guides, usually we think of them in 3 realms: the upper world, the middle world, and the lower realm. And when we're working with our guides in each of these different realms, we're able to access so much more power, so much more insight, so much more wisdom, such different perspective than most of us in our 3D ordinary reality can can get to. It's just the exponential power and insights that we bring working in this way I think is essential for us in handling the complexity and the and even just the power of what's coming up for folks in their personal life or collectively.
Yeah, you touched on that word perspective. And of course, I named the show From a Medium's Perspective because I do so love the perspective that we gain when we are in touch with energies that go beyond the physical world. It gives ease to life. It can create patience, knowing that there's a greater situation going on than our immediate one, and it can heal too. What do people come to you the most for, do you think?
Well, in one form or another, they're feeling stressed or overwhelmed. Could be physically, could be emotionally, could be spiritually, or they're just at a loss. They're not quite sure what's the right next path for them in their life, what their maybe soul purposes or career journey. Those are the kinds of ways that I work with people, and I can definitely talk about when I do my shamanic work, I talk about doing it for personal and planetary healing.
Why
And
don't you differentiate those so that they're crystal clear? Obviously, we understand the difference between personal and planetary, but explain why you differentiate those two scales and how you see that.
Sure. Well, I know that your listeners are going to understand when we do our personal healing, we're helping heal the planet, and we're doing planetary healing, we're going to help heal ourselves. So they're clearly interconnected. The personal level healing can happen to address probably one of maybe 4 or 5 different broad kind of categories. So one is some kind of physical injury. It could be maybe they've had an injury and they're going into surgery. I've done work like this helping people prepare for surgeries or after surgeries, helping them clear out energetically. The main way that I'm talking about this kind of healing is at that energetic level. So for instance, with homeopathy, there from that perspective, the illness or the dis-ease happens inside at an energetic level, and it works its way out into the physical where you see the symptoms. In a shamanic perspective, the physical injury or the physical illness is again happening in an energetic way. It could happen on the etheric level, it could happen at a soul level, it could happen in other ways. So you're not addressing the physical symptom, you're addressing what's going on energetically. So with an illness, a physical illness, it may be that the traditional shamans all used herbs and tinctures and teas and wraps from plants and those kinds of things. So plant medicine was enormously important for physical kinds of illnesses or injuries. But that's really only one, and in some ways that's maybe the simplest form of personal healing that may be taking place for people.
Mm-hmm.
For people who have experienced any kind of major trauma, they've been, raped, sexual abuse, maybe they've been in a car accident, maybe they've lost their house in a flood. I mean, I'm looking at what's going on in Houston, and you're talking about
Yes.
some people having some pretty major trauma going on there. So when they've experienced some kind of a trauma like that, especially if it's a really sudden trauma, they're likely what's going to happen is a part of them, a part of their soul is going to disassociate from their body, quite literally. And so what you have to do in that kind of healing is soul retrieval. You have to reintegrate and reweave the pieces of themselves, those soul parts that would have left their body, bringing it back. So that's a huge type of healing. It's a very different type of healing than what I'm talking about at the sort of quote unquote ordinary physical
Mm-hmm.
level. Another level is, again, it could also happen from maybe having been raped or assaulted or abused in some sort of way, is people feeling a sense of power loss, like they feel that victim. They feel that sense of nothing I do matters, or I can't defend myself, or I'm out of control. I can't control my life. So those types of issues, those tend to be more what I think of on the kind of the emotional,
Yes.
maybe even mental or spiritual level, that kind of loss of power, loss of self-efficacy, of their ability to truly, make their lives be what they want it to be, that, that kind of healing can happen through a shamanic journey, connecting them with a power animal or some kind of totem or an amulet of some type, some kind of sacred object that might help them reconnect with their own sense of power. So
Yes.
that's a different type of a healing.
Yeah, hang on to the sequence that you're thinking of there. I just wanted to interject that maybe that's one reason that it's good for people to begin working on their psychic abilities too, because you reclaim parts of yourself when you meet your guides and learn that you're accurate and, you know, get past the fear and all that kind of thing. And what you're talking about is just so deep because when people do lose that, I love how you said that they sort of lost, they have a power loss. They feel like they're not in control in their life. And that was just beautifully said. And by gifting them back that sense of control, it's just an incredible work.
And that's why in this day and age, as I was mentioning before, the complexity of the problems, right? We got, the whole North Korea launching, there's just so much going on that we have, in some ways, we have no control over. The economy, they just seem so much bigger than who we are.
Yeah. And
Hard.
I was going to say, and people are feeling it. You had started about the personal and the planetary. People are feeling it from their perspective, how they are personally doing, how the people in their lives are doing, how the people in their extended family and work environment are doing, what their culture is doing, what their country is doing, and it just echoes out. And there are so many levels. It really is a complex. I remember when, this is a very dated memory, but I was around 4 when John F. Kennedy was shot, and I remember feeling the repercussion of his death in our society at large and around the world too. And so people do become under tremendous strain. Even us who work in the field have moments where we reach out to another professional and say, lend me a hand, help me with this perspective,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, September 11th would certainly be one of those in the more recent era. And even, I live in Charlottesville, so right 2 weeks ago we had that, horrific, and we can talk about this,
Yeah.
like in my mind, kind of the shadow element of, bigotry and hatred at, in its worst ugliness come to the surface.
Well said.
And so it's about how do we claim our power, knowing that this is coming to the surface now, and we can feel overwhelmed by it. Boy, I can't even tell you in the last 2 weeks how many conversations I've had with people locally around helping them stay grounded and helping them get clear on what their role is. I mean, I see myself, helping the light workers, right? So how
Yes.
can my ability to help myself for sure and others stay grounded so that we truly can be the light, be the mirror, be the radiant ones we need to be to help others as they're dealing with these, some of these can be quite overwhelming events in their
Yeah.
backyard or around the world.
And you touched on something also, and I'm sorry to interject so much in the midst of the stream here. We'll recap, but also like that differentiation between what we can control
Hmm.
and what we can't control. And you were indicating very eloquently about, the fact that when we have these major events happen in our lives, we feel that we have no control over our lives. So
Yeah.
back to that sequence. Sorry.
No problem. This is a dialogue, so I could keep talking, but I definitely want to, have you chime in whenever you feel appropriate. Yeah, so that, that power loss, we've definitely been talking about that. And then kind of two other pieces One is definitely more traditional shamanic, which is, and you can probably relate to this as well, what might be considered sort of psychic attacks or attacks of
Yes.
dark entities or negative entities. And that's not a world that I work with. I don't feel comfortable, and I certainly haven't been trained in that one, but that is an area that shamans, have in various traditions dealt with. That's another type of a healing.
So if you were to list them to date, I'm sorry, the three styles that you've talked about, the physical, emotional, and spiritual,
Sure.
just encapsulate that because I my interjection threw things off a little bit, but it was just important to add in the details. So
Sure,
yeah.
sure. Yeah, so I've been talking about, how we, on the physical level, we might do it through herbs and teas and plant medicines and those things. There may be at a both a sort of a spiritual and emotional, this sense of sort of soul loss that we might have from a trauma, those kinds of things. Another way that there may be some sort of spiritual healing is when people really have a just sense of loss of purpose, like in the big, like existentialist, like why am I here?
Yes, yes. Oh, yes, I know. People do wonder that. Yes.
So, people with extreme forms of depression or those kinds of things, it's really because they're they're not remembering, or they're disconnected from their larger soul purpose or soul contracts. So that's another way that it may happen at that on that spiritual level. And then we were talking about power loss, which could be, that sense of being a victim or not in control, and that can be at a mental, sort of a level.
It enhances fear and causes blame
Exactly.
and
Hmm.
yeah.
And
And
then the last level that I work at, I don't actually know how typical this is in indigenous cultures, because I do believe in past lives and
yes.
do the healing in for many lifetimes. I feel that that's another area of past lifetime healing.
Yes.
So I do work with people to, it may be some soul retrieval that needs to be reintegrated from a past life. It may be a physical injury that needs to be healed from a past life. There may be past life contracts, vows of poverty, vows of other ways,
Chastity.
chastity, right? Other
Yes.
promises or sacred vows that we may have, vows of silence, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
there may be
Yes.
various ones of those from past lifetimes that we need to clear and release so that in this lifetime we can do what we're truly called to do. And so and I can maybe just share a quick story
Oh
about
yeah.
a past life clearing that's really helped me. I mean, it was probably the piece that got me even into doing some of the shamanic work. About, gosh, 20 plus, maybe 20, close to 25 years ago, I did a past life regression. Was not at all at that time interested in doing anything related to shamanism. But in that past life regression, one of my lifetimes, and I've had several where I've been some sort of a shaman or medicine person, but in one in particular, in that past life, I was the leader of the tribe. I was a medicine person, and I had told my tribe, my people, that by making this agreement with the white, this was in North America, in the U.S.,
Yes.
making an agreement with the white, government and white people, that we would be safe and we'd be better off. And as a result, we were betrayed, and our village was basically wiped out.
Mm.
And from that lifetime, I made a vow or a promise I would never again be a shaman or a medicine person, because it was just too the responsibility of it and my inability to protect my people was so great. I made that vow. Well, it was in
Because
this.
you had such a deep consciousness for the consequences of
Yes.
advice that you give
Right.
or energies that are shifted.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Huge
So
responsibility.
yeah.
Yes.
So as a result of that past life work, it was really clear to me, some things made sense why I was drawn to certain things over the course of my lifetime, but also that if I was ever someday going to step into doing this work, I had to do a lot of my own healing and clearing from that. And it probably took me a good 10 to 12 years of some conscious shamanic work and journeying and healing to feel like I even remotely felt confident and sort of good enough to step back into this role because, I was scared. I didn't want to either misuse my power. I didn't want to have something happen as, again, in a negative way as a result of my having this sort of leadership or other role. So that was important. So that kind of past life clearing is so important to help us step into who we're supposed to be in this lifetime. It's just essential.
Yeah, yeah, and that we can reuse, repurpose, recycle things that do get gifted from our past life experiences, but we don't have to use them in the same way. I see that quite a bit among students. I wouldn't say like, 1 in 10, but maybe 1 in 50 that is nervous about unfolding their gifts. They want to, they're natural at it, but they're nervous. And if they, look at a past life thing, sometimes they can find out that it was because they felt they abused their gift in a past existence, and either through their life review or through time and reflection, never wanted to recreate that. So how did you move past it for yourself? What was your process?
Some of it was at the physical level, and my own kind of clearing of some heart, like doing some heart chakra kind of clearing or heart, past life work around healing some things related to my heart. So it was a big part of it. And then as the more I learned, then I started taking, classes and doing shamanic work and shamanic drumming and those kinds of things. The more I got comfortable with it, and the more, particularly when I started leading shamanic journeys for people, the more people just soaked it up and just said, Linda, we want more, and this has just made such a difference in my life, or I can't believe how much more clear I am as a result of this. The more I realized how much it really was helping people, the more I thought, Linda, I have to step into this because it is my way of being of service to the world. And that if I don't do it, I'm not, it's too egoic. It's like, that's about my ego and it's not about being of service. And so
Yeah,
that
because it's about your discomfort rather than
exactly.
the higher purpose. Not that we should ignore our discomfort. There are
Right.
reasons that we have flags, but
Mm.
yeah. So for people that are listening that might not be familiar with what a shamanic journey is, um, uh, go ahead and share your view on that.
Sure. So different people are going to practice it differently. I'll obviously just share how I do it. For me, it's very important. The first and foremost thing is that we're creating sacred space together. That the sacred container that we're working in is as pure and clear as possible. So I always smudge people when they come in, and I smudge myself with some sage and smudge it in a particular way, as above, so below, as within, so without. So we're really clearing the energy in that way. And then I also call the directions north, east, south, and west, above and below and within, so that we are just absolutely creating the sacred space with the utmost power and clearness of intention as possible. And as I'm calling in the directions, I'm calling in my guides, and always preface everything that I do. I sort of encapsulate it all with the phrase, may the right highest good be done.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes, may the right highest good be done.
Right. For me, that's important because, again, I don't know what always is the right highest good for me or for anybody else. And that's why working in these different spirit levels or spirit realms is so important, because we get these other perspectives that we would never know.
Never have. Yeah, that it's really interesting. I'm sure you've mentioned that before in our conversations. May the right highest good be done. But it just made me realize that when I do a reading, I'm always asking whatever the most important thing for this person is that it get covered. In
Mhm.
terms of what is the highest best for them.
Right. Yeah. And,
It's not always on their list.
exactly. Yeah. And a similar phrase for healing work is may the most beneficial healing take place.
Oh, that's beautiful. May the most beneficial healing take place. I love that.
Because again, that one, you don't know if it's mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, this life, past life. I mean, it just encompasses everything so that you're basically, and the other thing that I really like about that kind of a phrase is basically saying, this isn't my agenda.
Absolutely. It's not us. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
It's the spirit and spirits and the universe and God energy that works through us. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
not us. Get
Yeah.
screwed. Yep.
Yeah. So creating the sacred space is enormously important, creating and affirming what the intentions are. Every
Uh-huh.
journey that I do, I do a journey on a particular theme because that really helps people set their own intention of what they want to do. So the theme can be, I do often seasonal, so the equinoxes and the solstices around balance for the equinox, around maybe the harvest. So I did a Lammas on August 1st, or what do they desire to harvest in their life? So it could be a journey on forgiveness. It could be a journey specifically related to some sort of healing. So I try to pick a very specific theme that we're going to do the journey on. That way people can get get really focused on what their intention is for the journey.
Would you call it a guided meditation or would you call it a lightly guided meditation? How would you?
Sure. So once after we call the directions and everybody's in their space, most people lie down. Some people sit up against the wall, but I get people really comfortable and I do just a little bit of a deep relaxation just to give them a chance to just start to drop down into that more meditative state. I always tell people your journey is yours. You're going to go where you go, or you might, just not remember anything. Some people just go out completely and they really just don't remember the journey. And I say that that's just as good too, because then that means the guides are working with you at a level where your mind isn't getting in the way.
Oh, no, that's true. It's like some of our dreams we recover and some we don't because we're out of body during our dream state. And
Right.
some things are meant to be recalled and some things are not.
Yeah,
More useful at a high soul level than in a,
right, right.
yeah.
So after they're getting in this deeper meditative state, then I start drumming, and I do generally my journeys are more guided. So what I'm doing is I'm holding the sacred space, I'm powering up, and I'm working with my guides. And again, it's related to a theme or an intention. So my intention is to, as I start the journey, I just allow my guides to show me what is needed, what we're needing to experience, where we're needing to go, what needs to happen. And as I see it, I describe it, and then they then can go on the journey and wherever it takes them. So for instance, I might describe, well, we're at a waterfall and we're going to step through the water into a cave. Well, I might say that, but they may do something else completely different, and that's totally okay because it's their journey. So
Right.
while it's guided, it's always, and I tell just go where you're guided to go. You don't have to
Yes.
listen to me. So I will guide it. I drum the whole time because it's the vibrations of the drum that keeps the energy up,
Oh,
and
yes.
that's really important. And then just whatever happens is I tell people I never know, never, ever, ever have I known ahead of time what's going to happen in a journey because I only experience it in the journey.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so whatever
Yeah, you're
comes through.
just like well, that's a silly, maybe not a silly. I was thinking like John the Baptist or like leading you're going first, but not uh quite, it's your new experience for you too.
Right.
Yes.
And some journeys at the end of it, come out of it and people who've done it with me, they know the kinds of journeys I do. I'll just start laughing. I'll go, "Oh my God, I had no idea we were going to do that."
Oh, that's awesome.
So I never,
Thank you so much. Linda J. Ferguson, welcome back.
I'm here.
I forgot to announce your website. Usually our listeners like to cyber spy on our guests while the show's going on, and yours is a very easy website name. It's lindajferguson.com. That's Linda with an I, J Ferguson, FERGUSON.com, lindajferguson.com.
And the J is just the letter J.
Yeah, no dots, no dashes, nothing complicated, just Linda J. Ferguson. Yep. Thank you so much. So we were talking about the steps that you went through when you're leading a shamanic journey. If there's anything remaining to that, please feel free to interject, but also tell us, what kinds of things that you and your and your clients experience in their journeys?
Sure. So right at the break, I was saying how I don't ever know what's going to happen in a journey until I'm actually in the journey because it's always just guided in the moment. So I can remember the last couple ones that we had. The one of them, I had no idea we were going to do a time travel, and we ended up kind of going through this portal, and we went to a different dimension of time. It was, a time when we would have a past life when we would have had some sort of an illness or an injury or something that we needed to heal. And the healing took place in that past life that then we were able to bring forward in this life. And I had no idea that that was going to happen in that journey. So that was one
Oh,
of those,
that's awesome.
it was definitely one of those unexpected things that happened. Another one, this was back in the spring sometime. I was leading a journey, and it was so funny because it was at a time when just the time of year, I was like, why are we doing it now? But it was so clear because something had kind of happened to a large group of folks, and it was really clear that there needed to be some forgiveness done. And
Hmm.
so as I was leading the journey, and I was not even really all that conscious of it, but as I was leading the journey, we went into this, I call it the well of forgiveness. And there was just this tremendous clearing using this well and the water and looking in the water and releasing what needed to be forgiven. I mean, it's just this
How
really powerful
beautiful.
journey. Yeah, it was awesome.
People, I'm just going to interject here too, that a lot of times people think, why should I forgive them? They hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't. I think they mix that in their minds with um, saying it's okay that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like acceptance. Acceptance is fine when it comes down to accepting reality. That's our first step in putting our feet down and moving forward. But tell us a little bit about some of the other reasons that forgiveness is an important thing.
Well, to me, it truly is ultimately about healing. I mean, we can't be the fullness of who we are, and we can't be the light of who we are here to be if we're holding resentments. I mean, grudges and resentments are going to cut us off from source big time. So in order for us to really reconnect with, and I'm saying source for, this larger whatever it is that we
Yes.
might call, the creative power that is. So we can't connect with that if we're carrying these resentments or grudges or judgments or pain or all of that. It's going to be healed through forgiveness. It's just such an essential component of us really being able to get back to our true divine nature.
Yeah. What wise description. Thank you on that. Yeah. So, anything else that you want to share on that before we go into sort of a broader perspective, maybe going into eco shamanism?
Sure. So, well, this might actually be a good segue. So, the journeys that I've described so far have been for very specific individual reasons, like our personal healing or the forgiveness or whatever. But we can certainly do shamanic journeys for eco shamanism or planetary healing, and I love those as well. In fact, I'm going to be doing one tomorrow. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I live in Charlottesville, and so the site where the rally took place and where the woman was killed, just about everybody that I know that's walked in or down near that area in the last 2 weeks have said they have been kind of freaked out because the energy there is just really wonky. And so there needs to be energetic clearing of the land.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
There's and you're in Virginia as well. Also, in Virginia there are a lot of Civil War places, right? So
Yeah.
energetically clearing of battlefields or energetically clearing Houston. I'm going to be doing some work, obviously, helping with the Houston hurricane. I did it with a whole big group of people when the Gulf oil spill took place. So we
Beautiful.
can do collectively, individually journeys to clear land, to literally clear the land when there's been an environmental devastation or in some other way an emotional trauma or whatever. So that kind of clearing of the land is really, really powerful. And for me personally, I just feel that really strong desire to do more of, and this is what I call kind of this eco shamanism approach.
Love that.
Working with the earth and nature and the elementals and the spirit guides to help us restore balance on the planet as the planet itself. It's just so important. So important.
Yeah. I think that just like people have past life traumas that may affect them, or cumulative traumas in this life that may affect their belief that we can move forward in time. Also, the history of the planet and the psychometric embedding of energies from past occurrences can accumulate to make us feel like there's no hope, like it's going to be bad. It's been bad, and is bad, and it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the highest journeys of soul is to realize that that there is joy after destruction. It's not joy in destruction, unless you're in a really ritual or terror. And in that case, you may have some regrets later if you have a conscience. But yeah, that's really important work, because that impact of what's happened, and there are some things that are intended not to be released, but there are things that can be released that make a huge difference. And people don't need to understand personally, like, oh, I'm walking across the land that they just cleared, and oh, it feels better. They're just going to walk across the land and not feel some of the heaviness that's there, or some escalation of vibration after you work. And I love that eco shamanism. That's so
Yeah. Yeah, and another way that I've used that is just around here. This one road used to be just this beautiful country road with all sorts of trees, and they just in the last year basically clear cut it, and they're putting in a little subdivision. And I mean, I just almost cried. My heart felt so heavy when I saw that happening, and it took me a lot of months to just not be in that place of sadness or despondency. And so, but finally, I was able to do a journey where I connected with the earth, I connected with the trees, I connected with the earthworms and the elementals under the earth. And while I can't do anything about what the real estate developer was doing there, what I could do was to send radiant energy to the natural elements that were there to help strengthen and fortify them. And so in this journey, I connected particularly with these couple trees and just saying, all right, I know that there are not more of you standing ones, right? I feel really horrible about that. I'm going to at least send you as much love and appreciation as I can, so that you can stand with as much energy and support that you can. And it just felt so empowering and freeing and clearing for me personally to give up my grief. In fact, that was part of my journey. I had to give up my grief to be able to do that. But afterwards, I felt like there was some energy shift on the land itself, knowing that we were going to at least support the energy that was there of the land that was still in there in its natural state.
Oh, that is a great example. It just, in our lives, to be happy, going around blockages and flowing to the path of least resistance, not in terms of the least effort on our part, but just in terms of the least energy that it consumes in our life, moving through those around the rocks in the stream of life and flowing is really important. But there are times when we do get jammed up, like this, where you had no control over the developer destroying a beautiful habitat there, where you have a choice, and that is you can avoid it and flow in a totally different direction. You could have moved or ignored it, or put in a screen on your windows on that side or something like that. But the other option besides avoidance or trying to evade it is to adapt your vibration so that you can flow with it. And I'm sure those trees, and I'm sure some of the listeners are laughing, but I think also some of them are quite sober when they're hearing, I think those trees thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, that kind
And
of
it
gets me.
gave them a sense of being and purpose too. Yes, go
Yeah.
ahead. I feel you.
Well, I was going to say that brings me back to the very beginning when you asked me just sort of what is shamanism. So in our kind of worldview, everything has life, right? So the
Yes.
trees, we call them the standing ones, we call them the stone people, we call them the winged ones, right? The thunder beings. So every aspect of nature is a life being, not
Yes.
just a life force, but a life being. And so as we connect with the essence of the being that we're working with, we get guidance and information from them and strength and whatnot from them, and likewise we can give strength and radiate that sort of vibrational love and attunement to them so that they can be sustained. So it's always working, and this is why I really like this path. It's always working for the higher benefit of all beings, knowing that we are all in relationship. We are all in, I mean, the whole phrase Matakio Yasin, right? To all my relations, we
Mm.
are walking here in balance.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And that's so true. It's such a synchronicity. I didn't intend this, but I posted as my Facebook cover today a picture of a green eel that I had taken in a wonderful visit with my son Eric a few years ago in a zoo kind of thing, aquarium in a zoo, and that reminded me of one of my first past life memories, which was being plankton and watching a black eel very slowly, very primordially move through in front of me. And, a lot of us in the West are not taught to think of animals as having an equal value to people, or that their soul, that there's no soul in a rock or whatever. But, when an event occurs on the land, like you were talking about earlier, there is a psychic imprint that embeds in that what we would call an inanimate object or on that land, and for those of you out there that are listening that are so sensitive, for sure you have not only gone in houses that you felt uncomfortable with or felt that had been very peaceful, or but also on land you can feel the energy of the land too.
Well, especially if you go around here where there's so many Civil War battles, there are people, I've had to do house clearings for people because, their house was on a battlefield from 100 plus years ago, but they could feel it, or they had a negative entity or something walking around their house. So, yeah, I mean, that's a whole
Someone
nother
else.
that's a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation of house
Oh,
clearings.
definitely, definitely. So when you talk about planetary healing,
Mm.
oh, and I wanted to say one thing really quick too. Like when we think about, someone might say, "Oh, she has a lot of cheek, thinking she can change the energy of a whole place or the planet or something like that." But I think that that's very limited thinking in for people to think that we couldn't have an effect, because we exist on many scales. We
Yeah, and
exist in our physical body. We have our, like you were talking earlier, our etheric body. We have our astral body, our mental body. We have our bodies that, and our mind is not bound by our physical form. Just like when you take people along on a journey, um, they're not in their body anymore. They're able to experience other lands, other realms, other universes, other experiences that their physical body isn't experiencing, but give very real um, journeys to the soul, too.
yeah, and especially if you're really pulling a lot of people together. And the best example that I can give is the BP oil spill in the Gulf, however many years ago that was. There were, I can't even tell you how many dozens, if not hundreds of us we're really focusing our intention of seeing the oil dissipate, seeing nature restored to its balance. And there were many scientific reports afterwards saying that they had originally anticipated it would take, X amount of time before the water would be in the state that they needed, that they wanted to restore to. And it happened in, I think, about half of that time.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And I want to share with our listeners, I asked you for your assistance just in our conversation about this show, mentioning my broken ankle. And it's healing so much faster than anticipated. And I could feel an energy shift after you put whatever small or large focus that you did on it. I knew it was from you. I could feel your vibration embedded in it also. And I want to thank you again for that. I'm able to walk without a boot, which they didn't expect me to be able to take a boot off for 2 weeks. I haven't used a boot. I don't even know how long, definitely since then. And I'm able to drive. It's still perhaps uncomfortable and I'm still healing, but the rate of healing to me seems spectacular, and the shift in how I felt was evident. And I just want to thank you.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. So the healing, it can happen at all these levels, right? And as let me kind of get back a little bit in the planetary healing. One of the other ways that we can do that is we can specifically focus on one of the elements, earth, air, fire, and water. And particularly if there's toxic waste or toxic waste in the earth, or an oil spill in the water, or something else that may have happened in the air, right? We can specifically work with those elements, earth, air, fire, and water, to energetically clear, burn off, release, wash away, purify, whatever is the focus that we're trying to do, so that we can restore to balance. And that's the ultimate goal, is to restore nature to nature's natural balance. That's always why we're trying to do this planetary healing of these kinds of issues that happen. And we're going to do it, as I said, we're going to do it for Houston. And you can do planetary healing for specific cities or regions, whether it's because of a war. I did one. I continue to do ones for different places in the Middle East. Did one for New Orleans 12 years ago, I think it is, for Katrina. Now we got the whole Houston. So, you can do it for a whole region, helping it restore to its natural, harmonious, balanced place. And so
what a different concept than just throwing your hands in the air and thinking the world's just going to hell in a handbasket. Instead of that, working after the shock, like you did with the trees in the neighborhood, after the shock, realizing, okay, what can I do? I can continue to look at the situation like it's just the worst thing that ever happened to the planet, or I can start sending healing and visualizing. And that, of course, shifts our personal energy because it's how we do perceive the world. Do you see the world as a hostile place? And for sure, without doubt, there is hostility and tragedy and abuse and terrible things that occur. But there are also positive things that happen. And being able to harmonize yourself with the earth and harmonize yourself with people and the higher good, as you put it before, how beautiful is that?
Yeah, may the right highest good be done, right?
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, sometimes it does take a hurricane to bring a community together, right? We're not thinking of, who the Republicans and the Democrats are in Houston. We're just thinking there's this, area of 6 million plus people affected, And
yes, yeah, the eclipse did the same thing.
Yeah.
Wasn't it beautiful how silent people got? It was like for just a moment, they weren't thinking about themselves. They weren't thinking about their problems or the other people in their lives. They weren't thinking about the politics. They were just thinking about the magnificent eclipse. Oh, Linda, we are unfortunately at the end of our hour. I can't believe it. Thank you so much. LindaJFerguson.com. And for me, mediumtracylockwood.com. Thank you so much for being with us. Remember that it's never inappropriate to be kind. And without integrity, we have nothing.